Hello and welcome to Witch on Witch Roundtable. I am Brigantia Blackbird. I am joined by Georgia Liberty of Wiccan Conservative and by Puritan View of Blackbird's Brew. How are you, ladies?
Hello, hello.
Doing well.
Good, good. My apologies to our viewers in advance for the state of my voice. As you can tell, at the time of this recording, I am still recovering from my recent illness. So thank you for bearing with me, and hopefully my less annoying voice will be joining us shortly. So, on to the topic of the video, and away from the fact that we're all recovering lepers, because it has been a hard 6th season. It's time for something fun. We're almost to Halloween, Samhain, Hell's Feast, Third Harvest, whatever we want to call it, and that means spooky seasons, ghosty woasties, creatures, and cryptids. Let's just indulge. We have all come here gathered, and we have got some good things to talk about. And I actually kept everything pretty local for me because, with one thing or another, I hadn't really looked into, my local creatures that go bump in the night. So, the first one I came up with was Momo, the Missouri Monster. And I love the description on this thing, and I hope you guys too. It has a pumpkin head. It has glowing orange eyes. It's about 7 to 8 feet tall. It's covered from head to toe in black fur. It has a horrendous stench that lingers in the air, and the people who said that they've witnessed it, they said that they tend to smell it before they see it, and they say that it walks upright. So, before I tell you a little bit more of the lore, how would you like to see that next time you step out onto your porch after dark?
My husband would say it's better than me in the morning anyways.
Oh, bad husband. We'll have to make him pay for that later.
Pretty spooky stuff there. Pretty spooky stuff. And you said that's local to Missouri.
Local to Missouri. It was the first reported sighting, that at least that we're aware of, was in 1972. It was 3 siblings, 2 brothers and a sister. And they were the ones, they noticed this horrible stench first. And then they saw this thing that, obviously they came away with a pretty wild description. And they said it was actually carrying the body of a dead dog under its arm.
Ew.
So, and I guess they were like 9, 10, 8, around that age group when they saw it. And since then, most of the sightings of this nasty little creature have been around the Mississippi River or in the woods, sometimes in the Ozark regions, and people are still reporting hearing cries, screams, bear-like growls in the night that aren't bears. And there's even a couple of wilder stories about Momo coming around, flipping cars upside down, and eating peanut butter sandwiches. I'm not sure where the peanut butter sandwich came in, but apparently he likes to damage property. And there's some speculation that maybe this is our version of Bigfoot. Just hard to
question. Does the peanut butter sandwich actually keep him away? Or will that stop him from coming? Or is that just like he raids your fridge for peanut butter?
No one said. That was the frustrating thing. I was looking up stories. I'm like, well, this is just weird. What on earth is that? And I was looking and looking, and nothing. Just, oh yeah, and he likes peanut butter sandwiches. I'm like, well, make them as a tribute. What's going on here?
Yeah, that's odd.
Yeah, but that's my opening volley. Amanda, what do you want to start us with? What have you got?
Oh, well, yes, I am familiar with Momo. He's been featured on many a story, and yes, he is related to the folklore surrounding the Big Thicket of Arkansas, Texas, Oklahoma. So that Bigfoot track that you go on, maybe it's a poor unfortunate Bigfoot that got a pumpkin stuck to his head, a jack-o'-lantern on on Halloween night. I don't know. Dead dog, that sounds, part of the mythology and the Bigfoot is that dogs and Bigfoot don't necessarily get along. But strangely enough, it's also reported that coyotes follow Bigfoot and alert to his presence. So if you hear coyotes rile up out of nowhere, listen, because you might also hear the Bigfoot calling in the distance. So it's
Ooh,
yeah.
Well,
It's
okay.
that's giving me pause.
So does
Yeah.
I mean, Bigfoot doesn't sound like the wolves though, right? Like,
No, he's
does anybody know what a Bigfoot sounds like?
Well, that's
Well,
it's up for debate, but the
I'm
long howling that you hear and guttural sounds, reverberating growls that like shake your chest, that you feel it more than hear it. It's that
Mm,
rumble of like a large truck rolling through. But then those high pitched screams, woman crying, sometimes even language, which I have an interesting story about Bigfoot and language. So,
Oh,
do tell.
please tell
yeah,
us.
in the Sierra Nevadas, there was a recording of two gentlemen who admittedly went into those mountains to record Bigfoot. So they were camping and hiking and moving about, and they had spent several days and not seen or heard anything out of the ordinary. But then, as their trip was coming to an end, wrapping it up, they got activity. And so it started innocently enough with rock throwing, tree tapping, what's also known as tree knocks, and things like that. But then on the very last night, they were in their tent together, and perhaps it was contrived, perhaps not. They captured a recording of a language, so to speak. And it's been reviewed by linguistic experts that say absolutely the moderation, even though it's an unknown language to us, not any language that we recognize, it's definitely a language. It's not gibberish. So some of the sounds are outside of the human hearing range that you can see it on the recording, but it doesn't actually register to the human ear on playback, which is kind of interesting if you're thinking along the lines of it's a forgery or something else. Excuse me. But the interesting note about the Sierra Nevadas is that ancient history, as far as the natives go, they used to have a relationship with Sasquatch and would invite them to their tribal meetings where they would play games, have a feast, and wrestle. The Bigfoot would wrestle the warriors. Now,
Whoa.
all of that that was all so pathetic until one time one of the Sasquatch killed the warrior, whether accidentally or on purpose. They don't know. I mean, that's up for debate. But the tribal council waged war against the Sasquatch, drove them deep into the Sierra Nevadas, and told them, "You stay here. This is your territory. Don't you ever come back." But it's thought that because they were in communion with each other before that, that these ancient natives taught them the language, a language that the indigenous people now don't speak themselves, but that the Sasquatch learned language from the natives when they were in communion and then now carry that forward. So interesting that those Sasquatch tend to have a language where that's not really reported in any of the other cases. So it's like, okay, so if they taught them language and then they had a big fight, like a war, like a real war,
Right.
and drove them into the mountains, that also would explain why the Sierra Nevada Bigfoot have a reputation of being very angry, very territorial, and very vicious. Because I guess their idea is, we got told this is where we got to stay, so you humans stay out. You're not allowed. If we're not allowed down in the valley, you're not allowed up here in the mountains.
Hey, That's
I kind of see their
definitely
point.
what was set in
So,
stone there. So, although
yeah.
it's interesting, it comes from like a different perspective because you get a lot of, deer trappers and hunters now who are like, look at this on my trail cam. And that's a whole different spin than, hey, look at that weird thing on camera.
Yeah, but you can look up Sierra Nevada Bigfoot talking or Bigfoot language, and the video is, readily available on places like YouTube and stuff. It's been saved, numbers of times. There's lots of commentary. People have all kinds of takes. So far, it's not anything decipherable. But again, legend would dictate that if they were communing with native peoples and that they were taught some kind of a language, even if it's rudimentary, broken language, it's still something, some way that they communicate that doesn't seem to translate to any of the other groupings of these entities. It's not
Well,
widely.
according to the legend, they were educated by the people of the region. So maybe it was exclusive just how those two, entities
Right.
communicate with each other.
It could be. I mean, it could be. Now, I mean, I've heard other legends and stories about a Bigfoot who talks, but it's always in English. So it's like, I don't
Harry
know.
and the
Maybe,
Hendersons.
yeah. There's a spooky tale about in the Appalachian Mountains. There's an old man and his wife that move in their retirement to a secluded little hollow, and they have this little ramshackle house, and they're perfectly content. But it's a long, lonely dirt road surrounded with the fencing and the cattle gate. So because it's old and not very well kept, the old man takes it upon himself to try to start manicuring the woods. And that begins the activity. So his wife gets chickens and they're living this life of retirement and happiness. But then they start to notice that anytime they're cleaning the fence line or things like that, things start disappearing from their yard, like the wash from the clothesline, or apples, or a pie left in the windowsill, things like that. And because they're so secluded, they're not really sure what's going on. So a number of months go by. The wife starts to notice that the eggs are missing from the chicken house, that she's not getting the yield she once was, and the chickens seem to be perturbed. Then one day, a chicken or two go disappearing, and all that's left are their feathers. So she's quite concerned that they have a predator on the premises. So she sends her husband out to check, and he goes along all the fence lines. He's making sure everything's mended up, and he sees nothing. But he hears a sound that he can't quite distinguish from other sounds of the forest, but it just didn't sit with him well. So he returns home, tells her everything is all good, and they need to just settle down and go to sleep. As the night rolls on, she starts to feel rather ill. And he is now thinking, I need to get her on back to town to the doctor. This is going to get serious. So he loads her into the pickup truck, and they go down the long, lonely road to the cattle gate, which is at the entrance of their property. Because it's a cattle gate, he has to get out of the truck and open it up manually. And as he's doing that, he hears the sound again. So he stops, standing there in the darkness with just his headlights, and he's scanning the forest, but he doesn't quite understand what's going on yet. Then he hears far off, a little further away, clearly in English, "Here, chickie, 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 here, chickie, chickie, chickie." And it strikes
Ooh.
such fear in him that he forgets the gate, gets back in the truck, barrels through and never returns.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so they just abandon the property. And so one is left to wonder if it was a thief, if that entity, whatever it was in the woods, was trying to lure him like it might have done the chickens. Obviously, mimicking what the wife might have said, raising these chickens. We all call the chickens to eat, when we're spreading the feed. So there's all kinds of open-endedness there. But the idea that this couple just completely abandoned the property at that, after experiencing the theft and chickens disappearing without a trace, and then the disembodied voice in the woods that just spooked him out. So I was like, yeah, that would scare me. I would not want to hear that. But again, in English, very clearly, here, chickie, chickie. So one of those fun tales to tell.
Yeah, and definitely to keep your kids and your chickens in the coop. Stay in the coop.
Lots of good goosebumps right there.
Yeah, Bigfoot kind of reminds me of the New Jersey Devil with wings, the Bigfoot with wings, because the way that thing just kind of appears and disappears and kind of talks to some people but doesn't talk to other people. And, it's got that whole mysterious vibe going to it.
Yeah. Yeah, the New Jersey Devil's an interesting story because he's associated with tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times before or I should say after he's sighted, but before the tragedy strikes, he's like seen in the area. I know there was a notable bridge that collapsed and he was seen at the bridge. So it's like, maybe coincidence, maybe not. I don't know. Not from that area. So I don't know how, a main street that particular avenue was, but it was pretty traumatic. And so everybody's like, ooh, it was the Jersey Devil's doing. And so he's one of those, like, if you see him, you're in trouble.
Watch out. Watch out. Yeah, yeah.
You bring that up. A few weeks ago, my husband and I were watching this show on Amazon called Hollier, and it was this paranormal team of investigators, and the New Jersey Devil came up, as well as goblins, and they ended up going all up and down the East Coast through the Appalachians and exploring about peculiar goings-ons in the caves. Not sure if we've got some
in the valleys,
really bad humans doing bad things, or if we've got something,
some monsters
something
out there.
else going on.
And
they
yeah.
ended up getting drawn in with the Green Man and all this other stuff. I mean, it is still it is still huge in people's psyches even today. And I remember when they were visiting one of the places where the Jersey Devil appeared, there was this gorgeous, huge, larger than life statue of it. And apparently there's kind of some mixed feelings about it. Is he the causer of disasters? Is he just a herald warning of disasters? Yeah, what's going on? And everyone had their own take. It's 2 seasons long, but I started watching it when I was decorating for Samhain, and I was still watching it a week later. So if you want to get hooked on something, definitely check that out.
Oh yeah. Love that sort of stuff. All that local legend stuff. I mean, you talk about the Appalachian Mountains, Pennsylvania. That's where I'm born and raised. So we have all those good goblin, fairy, poltergeist ghosts. You can't walk into a house up north or down south, apparently, Savannah being the city built on the dead. But Pittsburgh in general, they tend to have a lot of haunted theaters. I know that you mentioned the Green Man, which I always thought, we were talking before the recording, I always thought that everybody had their own version of the Green Man. And it's weird because Amanda brought up the trolley lights on the railroads as well. And you guys know, I mean, you built them from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast. So we had the trolley lights, we've got the Green Men, we've got the fairies of the valley, you've got the goblins, and then you've got your theater ghosts and just random people on on the streets dying and in the steel mills and things like that. So ghosts are everywhere, and they tend to play a lot of the same tricks that the Bigfoots play. They'll come in and, they'll steal or move your stuff, or they'll make you feel like you're hearing voices and you just think you're going crazy all the time. But no, it's a spirit or a fairy or a goblin, something kind of messing with your everyday life.
Right? Or living their best life,
Yeah.
I always just like, wonder if the fairies and the goblins think that we're the invaders. Like, look.
I think they do. I think they do.
That's a high probability.
Yeah.
Why are these people in my way? I just want to do my job.
Right. I'm just out
Well,
here
that
crazy
or-
season and got spotted, and now everybody's talking about me.
Well, that or they might think, oh, this is going to be the most awesome trolling opportunity ever. They don't understand what we are. They don't know the rules or anything. So how can we mess with them? I do wonder sometimes, especially when we get into accounts of different forms of Fae, of just how much of this is just, I'm going to poke the humans and I'm going to see how high they jump and it's going to be epic.
They are,
Well,
they are known to be quite mischievous. So
form of
childlike.
entertainment. Very, very. And when you're that small for how long, I can kind of relate. I'm only 5'3", so not far behind them.
Right?
Oh.
You just feel like you have to mess with the giants. That's it.
As a girl who's 5'7" and technically, I suppose, one of the giants, I mean, must you? Just take
Yes.
a break every now and then. See, Georgia, before we got started, I think you said something about some ghosty stories. Tell us one
Oh,
of your ghost stories.
yes. Oh, goodness. Do you want personal or local legend?
Oh, either way, it makes for, awesome video stuff. And hopefully
Yeah,
it will inspire
yeah.
a lot of comments and people also telling us about their local legends and their experiences. I mean, come on, people. Talk to us. This is the fun, spooky stuff.
Oh,
Anyways,
yeah.
go on.
Well, I'll share private then, private ghost stories, because I've always kind of been a little bit sensitive to the other realm. And actually, you guys know that I had my parents here this past week, and they're kind of getting into the spooky season, and they're talking about taking the kids and maybe doing a haunted house or hay rides or whatever. And I says to them, here in Savannah, since we have ghosts around every corner, Halloween is no different than any other day. So it's a little disappointing when you want to find something spooky. But I remember one time that I really freaked my mom out, and I asked her, I said, do you remember when I saw Grandpap in the old house that I grew up in? And she's like, I do remember that. And she's like, that wasn't the only person that you saw. And I said, no, it wasn't. I said, but that was the one that came in the most clearly. And I can remember it still to this day. I had to have been like maybe 9 or 10 years old. And everybody was in the living room and they were just kind of hanging out, doing their own little thing. And the way that our house was set up, you come down the hallway. And then if you took the left, you were right in the living room. There's a little big open hallway. So I come down the hall from the kitchen, and I think I had a glass of water or something like that. And, I see this man standing kind of on the outside of the doorway, just kind of observing everything. And for whatever reason, I didn't think very much of it until I did kind of like one of those double takes where you're like, hey, wait a second, that person doesn't belong here. So as soon as that thought hit my head, they were gone. And I come into the living room and I'm like looking around, and everybody kind of stops and they're looking at me and they're going, who are you looking for? Like, what's going on? And I'm like, nobody saw that guy. He was just standing here. Like, I have no idea who it was, but he on this like white polo shirt with, the collar, and it was a button down, and he wasn't wearing a tie. I said, but he had belt on, shirt was tucked in, and tan pants and dress, dress shoes. And she goes, my mom, she's like, no, there's no way. There's no way that person was here. And I said, I know for a fact what I saw. Like, I'm not lying, and I have no idea what you're talking about, but this is what I'm talking about. So she goes upstairs and she pulls out a picture of her father and brings it downstairs, and identical, like to a T. That's what he was wearing in the picture and everything. Now, I never got the chance to meet my mom's dad. I met her grandfather, but I never got to meet my grandfather. So it was always really weird. And she always thought it was odd because we didn't have like pictures of him in the house. Like there were pictures of him. I'm sure I knew at one time what he looked like, but we didn't look at them regularly. It wasn't like he was prominent in the household or anything. And this was from later in his life than a photo that I would have been exposed to or would have saw on a regular basis. And it really tripped her out. And my mom, she's she's kind of a religious person. So, that like even just having anybody bring that to her attention and having it be her dad on top of that was just like, whoa, she was like, and I knew you weren't lying because the look on your face. And I was like, no, I'm definitely not lying. But yeah, so that's my personal ghost story.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, that's incredible. And the fact that you got to wig out your mom, bonus
Yes,
points. Right
bonus
there.
points. Absolutely. And
I mean,
she takes me a lot more seriously now, I will say, because there's been a couple things, a couple things here and there. She's like, how did you know that? And it's like, well, you just know sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Don't ask awkward questions, Mother.
No. Don't ask questions I don't know answers to.
Right? Or you may not
Or at
want
least
to
not
know
the.
the answer.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes even once you have the answer, it's not a comforting one at all.
No,
Whew.
no.
So,
Even family's a little bit difficult to deal with on the other side.
yeah. Ooh, some of them are a little special, and some of them are still nosy and meddlesome. But I thought I'd toss out another one of our little cryptids. This is another one that's local to Missouri. This time the sightings happen mostly in the Ozarks, which I will return to that in a moment. But this is called the Nixa Hellhound. And descriptions apparently vary. Sometimes they say that it looks like a mutated deer, just real unhealthy and weird looking. Others have described it as a hybrid fox or a wolf man, and others as a hunchback gorilla, which I thought, okay, that's very weird because Missouri is not known for its primates and certainly not for its gorillas. So I don't know how a hunchback gorilla became part of our lore, but here we are. Now, the interesting thing about this is that there is debate about whether or not it qualifies as a cryptid or if it's a spirit that's also called the booger dog. That some people say that it appears once a generation and portends some kind of great event. Other people say that it appears more regularly with any kind of supernatural event. And then the third story is that it always appears within 18 hours of a major storm. So
Oh,
I thought, isn't that interesting? I mean, and depending on what season you're in Missouri, sometimes we do get pretty frequent storms, especially in the Ozarks. And the Ozarks has, how shall I put this, an atmosphere. I haven't visited there in the past couple of years, but it was some place that I did go fairly regularly when I was growing up with my family, and it felt different. You knew you were there, and it
mm.
wasn't necessarily a bad vibe or a spooky vibe, but I always felt like my awareness was heightened. And keep in mind, this is when I was a Jehovah's Witness kid and didn't understand anything about the supernatural or occult or anything. Even then, I still knew
Blind.
this is different. I don't know what it is, but it's different. So I'm sure that there could be something, whether corporeal or incorporeal, lurking around. And the fact that it's kind of the shape shifty type of thing, I do kind of lean towards maybe this is a spirit manifesting. And I'm like, huh. Wonder what else is going on with that. And why
Yeah.
is it appearing in
Yeah.
these forms?
Almost like the abominable snowman a little bit, I guess. You said the Ozarks. That's the first thing that come into my mind was like this big hairy white creature or something.
Actually, I didn't encounter anything like that when I was looking up Missouri cryptids. Of course, it's not like I've made a 20-year in-depth study of that or anything. But no, this one, it just kind of seemed like it was just kind of dark, hairy. We're just not sure what animal species it most reminds us of, apparently. But then I also think about, the Ozarks. We have all sorts of interesting people there.
Oh
How many
yeah.
of these sightings might have had chemical help? I'm just wondering. I just have questions. You never
See,
know.
I'm kind of glad that you put that answer out there first because I wasn't thinking chemical. I was thinking breeding, but
I was just gonna, yeah, on the tail of that, the Appalachian Mountains have a very rich history that can be attributed maybe to good shiners,
oh
or
yeah.
maybe to small gene pools. I don't know, I don't know.
Both.
Yeah,
Well, you got to keep that stuff in the family. That's how you don't lose the secrets.
that's
Well, that kind of goes into, while we were sitting here and talking, I looked up one of the Pittsburgh legends, and it's about Blue Mist Road, and it's in Irwin. It's Irwin Road in North Hills of Pittsburgh, and it says that a variety of urban legends populate the spooky stretch of road that is supposed to be shrouded by a blue mist at night. Two lovers' headstones in an adjacent cemetery are said to touch under the full moon. An old building foundation is said to be the home of a witch, and another house is said to be populated by little people who chase visitors. A half dog, half deer, half human is said to live in the woods and will chase or harm any person who creeps too far into the territory. People who have traveled to Blue Mist Road in hopes of finding these entities have mostly only found disgruntled residents.
I'm intrigued by that description, though. I thought that sounds kind of similar to our Nixa Hellhound. I wonder if they're cousins or something.
Right?
yeah.
Well,
Almost,
they're not
almost,
the only ones in the mountains interbreeding.
almost brings back a recollection of the Bremertown Magicians. So they
Yeah.
got quite the reputation all combined together. They were a witch and a ghoul and a cat and wild thing, and but they were all just regular animals. Just
Squirrels can sound pretty dangerous and creepy in the woods at night too. I'm not even gonna lie.
foxes sound possessed. That's a scary
Yes,
sound.
they have a
Yes.
weird sound. I
They
couldn't
make all
believe it the
kinds
first
of
time I heard foxes.
scritches and barks and howls, and yeah, they sound terrible. They'll scare you if you're not ready. Even if you know what it is, you're like, ah.
Absolutely. Well, hey, you showed us a picture of that little chicken thing. Did you tell us about that little
Yes.
chicken thing yet?
I will tell you, I will regale you with the story of the
Yes.
Charney. So
Yes.
the Chick Charney is the guardian of Andros Island, and it is said to be about 3 feet tall,
Mm.
an owl-like creature with long, spindly legs and fierce talons. It also has a second set of talons that are arms. It has red glowing eyes, feathers that are so fine it's almost like fur. It's a flightless bird, but it has the ability to turn its head almost 360 degrees. So fearsome nonetheless.
Oh.
Now, the legend goes that this bird is a guardian because it will either grant you or hex you with luck. So if you are polite and keep your manners and show it respect, especially if you encounter it, it will bestow upon you good fortune. But if you pay it no mind or disrespect it or scoff its existence, it will hex you. and in certain egregious behavior, it might just twist off your head.
Mm.
There are
Jeez.
there are no actual reports of anyone having their head twisted off, but the idea there is that it's capable. Most notably, Neville Chamberlain, Prime Minister of England a number of years ago, he inherited his father's plantation, which was thriving at that inheritance. But Neville did not take heed to the legend of the Chickcharney at the behest of the natives, who insisted that he be polite and show it respect. And he didn't. He scoffed it publicly, dismissed it, and the plantation quickly took a nosedive and was an utter and disastrous failure upon him taking it over. So the natives affirm their own legend, saying that because he disrespected the Chickcharney and its place on the island, that he was basically ousted within a number of months. And I wish the same could be said about someone like Biden.
I was just thinking, man,
he-
where is this thing when you really need it?
Right. We just need to move
Why
our
aren't they local
operation.
to DC?
Right.
So
Sugar, nobody happened to find anything on DC, did they, huh?
no, I
Oh,
wish they
no,
had,
honestly,
but it's a
Now
no,
that
fun
you
I
thing.
mentioned
didn't
it.
even look. I think, just because everyone who's there in corporeal form in DC is already so terrifying, I didn't think about creatures.
Skeletons and ghouls and zombies, oh my.
Right.
Oh, I
We
swear,
just
can
I
you
mean, that
imagine
Chuck
doing a
Schumer,
ghost hunt there?
Mitch McConnell, and Nancy Pelosi.
oh goodness.
Oh no, but that's adorable. I love that that thing is 3 feet tall and can make so many people afraid, like goals,
Yeah.
man. That's awesome.
Now, the truth behind Chickcharney may be that it is, in fact, a ground dwelling owl that is
Oh no.
confirmed to have once existed in the islands, and not quite the fearsome image that has come to the legend, but has, they have found bones of a ground dwelling, very large owl related to the barred owl in North
That's not
America.
even a joke. Actually, I think Crowder has this whole thing about the ground owl, and I'm not sure if it's like a joke or something, but apparently the
No, it's
ground owl
real.
is a thing. Yeah, it's a thing. I didn't know that,
Yep.
but that's awesome.
So the ground owl's bones have, or I should say the ground owl, the burrow dwelling owl, its bones have been confirmed found on the island, but they're recent. So, but this legend goes back hundreds and hundreds of years back to pirates and colonies and things like that. So, as they colonized the Bahamian Islands, England was, warned basically by the natives.
Mm.
Don't mess with our good luck charm, or it will mess with you in return. So it's
Wow.
one of those things when you're on Andros specifically and in the pine forest, pay your respects, be polite, and if you encounter the Chickcharney, give it its due, and it will reward you with good luck, which is the idea. Some natives still carry brightly colored cloth or trinkets to offer the Chickcharney should they cross paths, because
Mm,
it's said to really like those types of offerings.
nice.
So,
Good to know.
It never hurts. Never hurts to give shiny things, does it? Those
Mm-mm,
that's
dusty
no,
shiny
right. That's
things.
right.
that keeps a lot of things away. I mean, just as lore goes in general, like silver, if you keep a bit of gold, herbs, candies, like sugar, sweet stuff. It's always good to have that stuff kind of handy this time of year, just as a fair warning to all you ghouls and gals out there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You never know when it might become necessary. Sometimes, if you're wanting a spirit to take its leave, you can invite it to do so politely. That's what always kills me on all of these ghost hunting things. It's how quickly people try to turn something into an emergency. And I thought, okay, first of all, you went looking for something, and oh, look, maybe you found it.
Found it.
Why aren't you happy? And second of all, I mean, just because something is there and lingering, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has any ill intent towards you or the surroundings. So just people, pull yourselves together. Maybe you need to drink more tea, or maybe you need to meditate more. But I mean, do something. I mean, keep it together. If you're going to be out and about, I mean, don't be creating problems
No.
for
Right.
people.
I have the same gripe with the Bigfoot hunters. They'll traipse around the wood for days, but as soon as they might have caught something on camera, they run the other way. I'm like, what are you doing?
I gotta go.
Speaking of Bigfoot, just going back to that, I want to note that tomorrow is October 20th, which will mark 55 years from the most famous Bigfoot footage in history, the Patterson Gimlin
Oh,
film.
Wow, that's crazy.
55 years ago tomorrow.
You know, as far
wow.
as that whole legend goes, I always bought a little bit more into Bigfoot because if there's some sort of intelligence to them, then I could see them, either wanting or maintaining themselves off the grid to the point where we would not come in contact with them or they would go to extreme lengths to avoid contact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know that in Florida, in Central Florida, in the Ocala region, specifically near the Silver River, there is a breeding population of wild macaques, and they are an invasive species. They were brought in for a movie and then released. How nice
Hmm.
of them.
Oh,
Well,
lovely.
the the government at that time didn't view it as such a big deal because not being a native species thought surely they'll die off. Well, no. There's quite the breeding population now, so much so that if you go to Silver Springs, you could glimpse a monkey or two in the trees. And if you're living in Ocala, sometimes they'll raid your garbage cans.
Hmm.
Oh,
So
wow.
they're quite an established group. But to the traveler, I mean, I've lived in Florida most of my life. Other than being given a tour and being, like using binoculars and things, have never come across a wild monkey in those woods.
Hmm.
So it's one of those things where we definitely can say for sure we know they exist there, that they're a breeding population because it's been 60, 70 years. And there's they're rare. You can't really find them unless you go looking for them. Like I said, if you go out on tour like with the binoculars, you might catch a glimpse of one or two in a tree, but
Huh.
for the most part they stay to themselves. So Bigfoot might operate the same way.
I'm
You
just
never know.
saying.
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible. I mean, when you think about it, we don't know as much about our surroundings as what we think we do. And what was it that Dickens said? There are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in your philosophy. Dickens or
Right.
whoever it was. But I mean, it's just like, maybe a little humility is, I'm kind of slow when it comes to saying, oh, this and such absolutely could not exist. Like, that's just asking for the universe to serve you some humble pie up on a plate.
Right.
Right. In stereo.
Right? As
That's so
publicly as
funny.
possible. Oh, speaking of kooky animals, I did hear about something called the Raccoon Man that I've only found one recorded instance of, and it's in the town over from where I grew up, a place called Sugar Creek, Missouri. Which, if you are familiar with Sugar Creek, you know that a grain of salt is always suitable when listening to these stories. But this person was visiting a relative, and they were out and about walking one evening, and they hear a ruckus, and like, oh, some animals gotten into the trash. I mean, it's not that uncommon. Well, they were correct. Something was going through the trash, but it was at least 6 feet tall, They said it had
Um,
black spots all over, black stripes rather, all over its body. It had four-fingered hands. It was really bow-legged. It stood upright, but kind of wibble wobbly. And it was just going through the trash, and then it saw him, and it spooked, and it ran away. And the person who was sharing this story was on a Missouri Cryptid site. He said, I told my buddy about it, but he just laughed at me. So I'm going to put it on the internet.
Oh, that's way
Just in
better.
case. Oh yeah, in case anyone has
One person laughing wasn't enough. We need like 10 million.
Like I said, Sugar Creek, Missouri. It's a little special. That's not where we keep most of our geniuses. I'll put it that way. But I just thought that's interesting because that's something that I didn't find other references to. But I thought, huh. I mean, what else is lurking? And again, it comes back to the question of was there alcohol or chemicals involved in this sighting or not?
right?
But I mean, you never know with people, but on the other hand, what if someone really did see something like that and they are around and there's some kind of weird spliced together raccoon person wandering around and just
Ew. Ugh.
well, I know, but on the other hand, it gives me
Ugh.
this whole Guardians of the Galaxy vibe, with Rocket and the
Right?
Panda.
I was gonna say, it gives me the whole like finding a crocodile in your toilet vibe. I don't want to find a raccoon man in my trash any more than I want to find a crocodile in my toilet.
That's true.
Raccoons are way cuter than alligators or crocodiles. But on the other hand, once they're 6 feet tall, maybe that would be
Not
diminished.
so
But
cute.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It just struck me because I just as soon as I read the description, I'm like that image is going to be in my head forever.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's just, I think there was an American Dad. I think that's what it was, where they got a pet raccoon and it ate some of the steroid powder that the little boy bought to work out with, some workout powder, and ended up growing to be like 6 feet tall and attacking the family. So maybe that's playing in my head a little bit while you're telling the story. Like, man, that'd be dangerous. Like this jacked up raccoon.
I
That's
can see how
scary.
that would put you off for sure.
Just a little bit.
Um,
Oh,
let's see. We've had a couple animals. What about another ghosty tale? What have you girls got?
I was just reading into again another Pennsylvania legend from Easton, and it's about this greedy monk who used to make a fortune off of blackmailing wealthy people who confessed their sins to him. And the mission at the end of all of this got him to be hanged, and they turned him into a goblin who actually still haunts the forest in the surrounding area, looking for people to blackmail and to feed off of. So there's still a little goblin out there doing
little
the
Rumpelstiltskin.
doing the good deeds for the people who are greedy and confessing their sins. He's blackmailing them. So, I thought that was kind of fun. Not necessarily a ghost per se, but somebody who's enjoying their afterlife as much as they enjoyed their life.
You don't often think about spirits or anything kooky like that actually conducting blackmail. I love that needs to be a movie.
Yes.
It absolutely
Yeah.
does.
I know something you don't know because I watch you all the time.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, they probably have so much blackmail. Now if we could figure out how to use it, that's probably their problem.
Right.
Right. Yeah, the ghouls now or the goblins will just have to log into Instagram and OnlyFans and be like, uh-huh, I'm gonna tell your mama.
Absolutely.
Every Zoomer running scared. Be like, no, don't tell my mama.
We used to tell the story about the guy who lived next door to us. So I don't know how the rumor got started, but you know how kids in the neighborhood talk. And the house that was right next door to me, there was a old man who lived there by himself. And I just remember all the older kids telling us, like, don't ever go over there because he's really weird and he's really creepy. And we were like, you look at the older kids and you're like, why? And they're like, just go creep up to the basement and look inside and you'll see cats hung up by their tails and skinned alive in his basement. And it's like, oh no,
Oh,
no, no, we don't want to go see the cats hung up by their tails or nothing. So of course nobody ever looked to make sure there were no cats downstairs in the basement, but that was good enough to scare us all away from his house.
right.
So you kind of had
Oh,
your very own Boo Radley. Do you
Yeah.
remember that character from To Kill a Mockingbird? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I love it because there's actually a scene in the book where the kids are essentially doing the same thing. You were dared to go look in the basement window. In the book, it was the kids, were poking a stick against the side window, and their father was like, "Oh, well, what did I raise? I mean, if you want to talk to someone, you go and knock on the front
Knock
door.
on the
That's the simple
door.
thing to do. What's wrong with you?"
Yeah, that was like way back before they banned kids soliciting and stuff. So you could still but nobody would go to the house to sell anything, because they were so afraid.
Oh,
It's like your own no
oh,
oh,
soliciting sign. Just start a rumor about yourself in the neighborhood.
there you
oh
go.
gosh.
Great.
It's cheaper
When
than
I was in
paper.
when I was in my early 20s, my downstairs neighbor in this apartment complex started a rumor that my husband at the time and I were vampires. And she got all the kids in the whole complex absolutely convinced. I mean, you see how pale I am. So, I mean, that doesn't exactly dispel that idea. Well, my ex-father-in-law, I heard about the rumors because, eventually the kids knocked on the door and they literally asked, "Are you a vampire?"
Oh no, they didn't. Oh no, they
Oh, they
didn't.
certainly
Oh my
did. So I
goodness.
asked, so I asked them, "How can you tell who a vampire is?" So I thought I'll turn this into a teaching opportunity. But I was telling my ex-father-in-law about that, and when he left from visiting one day, he noticed that some of the kids were kind of watching him because he knew he had been at our apartment. So he found shade, walked through the shade to his car to where he never stepped in the sunlight, and he said their eyes were popping all big and like, oh, they are vampires.
Good show. Good show. I like that.
Hey, I mean, it was free entertainment. I bet those kids still talk about it. I used to live in the same
Next
building
to the
as a couple of
vampires.
vampires.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
She made us tea and cookie one afternoon.
That's hilarious. Oh my goodness.
It's really funny what kids will believe,
Oh,
what they will tell themselves too, which is, great. That's where these stories are born sometimes. It's from the imagination. And
oh yeah.
even if it's grounded in some kind of a truth, that it's still fun to make believe it
Oh
is,
yeah.
you know.
Oh yeah.
So
Absolutely, it is. I mean, where would we be without stories like this? This is the best part of the year for this kind of
Yeah.
storytelling.
Yeah.
Oh,
I say, and that's the best thing about the Savannah ghosts too, is that all of them kind of had that kernel of truth to them because of the history of the buildings and the areas that you're in. So for a fact there was nowhere to bury people at a certain time. We had to create cemeteries. We had to make these things. So what did you naturally do? Stick them in the backyard.
yeah.
I mean that used to be a common practice, and of course, when you keep the dead that close by, I mean, don't be surprised if every so often they wander
Come back.
through,
That's right.
especially when the veil is thin.
Oh,
Oh, speaking of the dead and of ghosts wandering around, are either of you aware of the Missouri State Penitentiary in Jefferson City, Missouri?
Mm.
hey,
I was gonna say, which story are they famous for? I'm better with stories than geography.
Oh, so many. This is the bloodiest 47 acres in America. It is a
That's
prison
it.
that operated from 1836, and it closed down in 2004. So this is still within living memory. It was our state's primary maximum security institution. We had a lot of executions there. Let's see,
Was
I
that the
think we had
riot
four.
one?
Oh, I'm sure there were riots as well, but this is also where we had the gas chamber, and I think at least 40 people were actually executed in that, including a couple that had actually killed a child together. They strapped them both in the chamber and they executed them at the same time. I mean, imagine
Cost
that. We don't
efficient.
have double executions anymore. Yeah.
Drat.
And and apparently the whole thing is pretty well haunted. I mean, and I was looking up a little few details this afternoon about it, and there are tours, and it's like you can rent the space out for 3 hours and do this kind of ghost hunt. This is our rate for overnights and all this stuff. So I mean, if you want to go in there and check it out, you absolutely can, whether you're form your own group or go in with a tour. But the cell block where the execution chamber is, that's apparently the most haunted of the entire place, but particularly a single cell within there, cell 14. People, they have, the usual cold spots, but they also hear growling noises. They have the sense of hands touching them and actually shoving people. And the inmates, as violent as most as they were in life, they have not changed in death. They're still despairing and moaning and doing whatever they can to mess with you. Actually, I think it was Mind CTV. I think it was them. They went in, they did an investigation in it, and it was I think, about the most freaked out I've seen those guys ever. So, if anyone is feeling brave, you could go to the Missouri State Penitentiary in Jeff City and just see what you can see, and then share video footage. Because if you
If it
catch something, I
survives.
want to see it. Yes,
If it
I can.
survives.
I haven't been able to get there myself, and my husband's always working, so he hasn't been able to take me. So I want to see something. I want to see the spooky booze.
We'll have to go. We'll have to do it. It's actually we
Oh yeah.
went to West Penn, the West Virginia State Penitentiary up in West Virginia State on Devil's Night the one year, and it was so much fun. But I do say, with all seriousness, whatever you can get out of a place like that, because I went in, I took a bunch of pictures, like regular pictures with my flash, and then I downloaded a special app with a night camera so that I could take pictures in the pitch dark. My pictures deleted themselves. They were gone. Like, my battery was jumping. I went in with 100% battery. We were in for maybe 15, 20 minutes. It went down to like 35%. And then it dropped to 15%. Then my phone shut off. Then I turned my phone back on. It was like 60%. Then it was at like 50%. Then it would jump up to like 80%. I'm going, whoa, this is like way too crazy.
Yeah.
So I just, took my
Something's
pictures and did my stuff. And as soon as we left, I went to look at my pictures, and like 95% of them were gone. I got a few of the night vision ones, but that was it. The rest gone. I don't even know what happened to them. Wild. Very wild.
Well, I have a few theories. I mean, spirits have been known to drain batteries and mess with electronics and all that. It's possible.
Yeah, they're looking for contraband even in the afterlife. I guess I should just be happy none of my other pictures were messed with.
Here's what I
Right.
pictured. So the ghosts were all posing for their pictures, and then they were reviewing them and decided they did not like that take. And
Gotta go.
nope, like swipe left. She's not getting that one. That one, see my jowls.
Yeah. I look way too dead in this picture.
Where'd all the color go?
Yeah. Look, you can't even see
female
me.
ghost.
Excuse
Oh
me.
my goodness.
Gosh.
You're making me cry here. That's hilarious. Yes, I can
it's so funny.
see the ghosts are like, okay, let's gin up the energy so we can make it. Like, oh shoot, that wasn't good. Delete.
Imagine having that power like over everybody's phones too, because they can access whatever they want, right? Just delete every horrid picture of you ever. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Maybe
don't
that's
know. Maybe
catch them on film.
Yeah, definitely.
kind of makes us wonder what we'll be up to in the afterlife. Will we be going off to whatever great beyond we are envisioning for ourselves? Or we could be hanging around Earth and, yeah, messing with people's cameras and phones.
I'm okay with
What are we going to
either.
be doing?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm down with that. Oh goodness.
Oh,
So who
gosh,
wants
we've
to
been
know
at this.
about the sea monster?
Oh,
I
yeah.
do.
One more, right? Yes.
That'd be an awesome way to finish us out. Absolutely. Go ahead.
So the Luska is another Andros Island phenomenon. It is ancient as well, so it predates colonialization. It is known to the natives as being a very large, ominous man-eater. So it is not the friendly Chick Charney in any way. It is very malevolent. It is a sea monster by true characters. So it's described in many ways, half shark, half octopus, a giant squid, many animals like that, like a transformer would like combine together to create this. The smallest of the reports says it's 50 feet long. The largest is 250 feet long. So we're talking about a massive creature. Um, the main thread between all the different stories of reports is that it is huge and that it has tentacles and that it's a man eater. There is
Good thing we're women.
yeah,
Right?
So
We're safe, Amanda. Yes.
as long as we're not near it. It's like I don't know if it can tell or if it's just men are the only ones stupid enough to get that. But yeah, so on Andros Island there is blue holes, and they are crystal clear, absolutely beautiful bodies of water on the interior of the island. And it's a favorite for scuba divers and skin divers alike. And so people will go and they will scuba. And most recently, it has been confirmed that these blue holes do connect to the sea through a system of underwater caverns. Before that, it was said that the underwater cavern was where the Liska made its home, and the tidal changes that would happen between the blue hole and the sea were the Liska breathing in and out. So it was a warning not to get in the water if the tidal changes were happening because the Liska was awake. It has been known to take out whole ships and individuals alike. It has been reported to snatch people off the deck of boats. It has been reported to snatch scuba divers within the cave system. You know, they go down, they never come back. Their lines that they're tethered to are severed. One person, a long time ago, I want to say it was probably edging on 50 years ago, was scuba diving in the blue hole. Something grabbed his thigh. He fought it off with his spear gun, and so it let go. He got to the shore in a frantic manner, removed his suit, and attributes his suit to his escape. But he had this terrible pock mark on his thigh that resembled that of like maybe a tentacle had latched onto him. But it's not like the regular tentacle. It was like a dinner-sized plate bruise, mark, whatever you want to call it, that occurred through his suit. So he attributes that, because it didn't attach to his skin directly, that he was able to fight it off. But if it not, he would have been a gone.
Question.
Yeah.
Are
ahead.
they around the Bermuda Triangle, perhaps?
That's what my husband asked. No, I don't have any reports of it being near Bermuda, but it wouldn't be out of the question because you may be aware of the St. Augustine monster
Mhm.
that washed up on the shore. That's purportedly a Lusca.
Huh.
Interesting. Really interesting.
But the legend persists mostly in the Gulf. So there's legends in Mexico, Belize, the Bahamian Islands, particularly Andros, and then the Miami-Dade, Cuban area. So it's mostly in the Gulf, but not in those deep waters of the Atlantic, where you would think that that makes sense because if we're thinking squid or something like that, giant octopus, those are cold water, deep water creatures. But interestingly enough, off the coast, the east coast of Andros is what's called the tongue of the ocean. It is a gigantic trench, similar to the Mariana Trench. If you Google Earth, Andros Island, you just look to the left or to the east of the island, and you can see the tongue. It's shaped like a tongue, which is why it's called that. But that's interestingly enough also where the U.S. Navy does its AUTEC program. And if you haven't heard of AUTEC, that's the Atlantic Underwater Testing and Evaluation Center. It's where we send our nuclear submarines to do their tests.
Weird, huh? Wonder what they
Yeah.
could be testing on. Gee, I wonder.
What foe are they putting themselves up against? Could they be off the Liska to perfect their submarines and their warfare, their radar, non-detection? There's all kinds of things, Can they evade it? Play
I
war
also
games with a
thought,
sea monster.
yeah, I also thought of it being kind of created as a way to explain why the ocean does what it does. Like, we were talking about Bermuda and people disappearing and stuff like that. I thought to myself, like, that could be a really good legend to explain why the ocean seemingly just eats people up.
I mean, and the Liska could definitely be, because Andros itself, just the tip of the island from Miami-Dade to Andros up to Bermuda is inside the triangle. So
That's crazy.
you go inside the triangle to fly from, like, let's say West Palm Beach to Andros, which is usually the most direct route. So, if you're going to encompass all of the triangle, then that could be its hunting grounds. But again, it has a bigger presence like in the Gulf Coast, which is weird because we have a huge continental shelf, shallow water, generally warmer, but not outside of the realm. One of the reports was like I mentioned before that it might be like a transformer. Many animals coming together, like schooling together. Humboldt squid do that. They will hunt in large groups, and when they're in a group like that, it's almost like a shark frenzy. It's hard to distinguish one from the other because they go into their color changing. It's a disorientation type of offense. And so if you have a large group of rather large but not super-sized squid that are all attacking at once, then that might account for the shark part of the tail where it's like this half shark and it's half octopus kind of a thing. So it grabs you with the tentacles and then they all just go to eating you. I don't know.
Yeah, that's wild. But, that's really weird.
Humboldt squid definitely have an ornery personality and they're notably dangerous. You don't get in the water with them because they'll eat you alive.
Like piranha fish. I was also thinking, like, the caverns you were talking about, we have not explored, like, not nearly enough of our ocean, so we don't know how, like, any of it works. Who's to say that there isn't caverns? We watched The Hills Have Eyes last night, so you know how, like, they were sliding through the caverns and stuff. Like, who's to say that that's not happening in the ocean? Like, if it's happening in the mountains and things like that, then it would make sense that they would also have tunnels. And have you ever seen what are they called? Molten lava snails or something, iron snails. They're made out of iron and they literally live in the lava. Like they've got these big tough shells and like they live in lava. I'll have to share it to the server, but kind of reminds me of something like that. Like, you know, maybe they're resistant to the you know, the unstable elements in the core of our crust, and they can move through those things and zip over from, like you said, the Gulf to the Triangle, like super fast.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we know that the jet stream moving around the, you know, would give them quite the ability to just catch the current and go. And you know, there's no real evidence of them being migratory or anything. Like, there's like not a season. It's a year-round threat. But you know, again, it's mostly circulated with the natives. Is you don't go messing around in the blue hole. And if you're a fisherman offshore, because Andros is a, you know, huge recreational island, you know, for fishing and things like reef fishing and things like that, it's beware that this thing has been known to suck the boat in underwater, like Kraken style, and then a few hours later pieces of the boat come floating back to the surface, but never any survivors. So it's woo.
Just another reason not to be in the ocean alone at night, ladies.
Right. Oh,
That's
well, I think we've done a good job of kind of giving our audience a little something to give them the goosebumps and just think about. Just, you know, as you're trying to go to sleep tonight, just think all of this over in your mind. You know, see how well you relax. Oh, but this has been fun. I have enjoyed this. I've heard about creatures that I had never heard of before. Oh, thank you guys for doing this with me. Before we get out of here, any last thoughts you want to leave with anybody? Amanda?
I would say double check and triple check your locks.
Always
Chicken
good
One,
advice.
two, someone's coming for you.
Everybody put your chickens up, and you know, if you're gonna scuba dive, don't do it alone.
Don't do it alone. Make sure your children are in the house.
Be polite.
What about you, Georgia? Any other nightmare fuel for anybody before we go?
If you don't have any children and you see handprints on your car in the morning, you should ask yourself, where was I last night? No, that's all I have.
On that note, everyone, thank you for watching with us. I hope you enjoyed it. Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Please come see us on Gilded. There's a link to join us in the description box below. You can find me, Amanda, Georgia Liberty, the whole gang, other content creators. And I think if you are wanting to talk spooky, you will find many a happy partner. So,
Yeah.
thank you, everyone, and bye.
Good night.